In this lesson, I will cover the layout of SOLID in a little more detail. As we mentioned before, there are 3 panes in SOLID. Each one displays a different kind of information. The most important pane is the one on the right, which shows you one record of your database. In this pane, there are controls for navigating from one record to another. You can advance, you can go back. And in the display of the record, you can see that the markers are indented. These are indented according to the settings that are in the left pane. Now, the settings are what we're going to tweak and adjust to make it reflect what we think the structure of this database is. Now, notice that some of the markers are in different colors. Each of these colors has a different meaning, and in a later lesson, we'll go into more detail about what the colors mean. The lower left pane is where messages are. Some of these messages are error messages, and some are just warnings. Again, we'll go into those in greater detail later. The upper left pane is the control center. It is a list of all of the markers, and for each marker, it gives you a variety of information. Now, for our purposes, we will just be focusing on the left 3 columns. But in this lesson, I will give you a bit of an overview of what each of the columns is in case you want to use it in the future. As noted, the first column has all of the markers that are in this database. Whenever you open a database with new markers, those markers will show up, or if you were to add markers to this one, they would get added to the list. The second column is a count of how many times that marker occurs in the file. Now notice the LX marker occurs 2,174, so that tells me how many records there are in the database. But if I look at the GE marker, there's 2230. That number is greater than the number of records. So that is telling me how many times the marker occurs. It's not telling me the number of records that contain it, but it's the actual times the marker occurs. So that means that some records have more than one GE in them. The count field is a very useful field, and it's worth paying attention to. The third field is basically the control center. These are the settings that we will be adjusting. And again, in a later lesson, I will be going into much more detail on them. At the moment, this may look totally cryptic to you, but don't worry, it will become clear later on. This column is for the writing systems, and originally it was envisioned that SOLID would be able to do an export to a lift file where all sorts of things would be set. Now that export is not actually functioning, so at the moment I prefer not to do anything with this column. Now in other materials, it has been recommended that you use a spreadsheet to make a list of markers and their counts and various information about them, such as what writing system they're in or what field and flex they go into. In these lessons, I will assume that you're using a spreadsheet like that you're doing that kind of bookkeeping elsewhere, or that you're doing it in your head. If you wanted to do the bookkeeping here in SOLID, you could. This would be a reasonable place to put it if you wanted to do it here instead of in the spreadsheet. They both can work. I'm just not going to go into a lot of detail explaining it here. The important thing to realize is that all of these columns will not have any effect on how the flex import happens. All that we're doing with SOLID right now is adjusting the SFM file. And then when you go to import into Flex, you're going to have to do the mapping from the fields in the SFM file to the fields in Flex all over again. So that's why I say it's not worth bothering with setting all of this. If you want to set these values just for bookkeeping purposes, just to document, that's fine. But keep in mind that you're not saving any effort for the import by setting these things. So the writing system column is an indication of the writing systems. The UTF-8 column is a way for you to indicate whether the data is in Unicode and for Solid to report to you whether it still is in Unicode or not. The lift column tries to give a guess of what field in Flex it would go to. And again, the goal of this was if Solid could export to lift. Now, it can't at the moment. That export is not reliable. So I generally don't pay attention to this, but it might be useful as a suggestion. Then the comment field can be used however you want. It's pre-populated with information about what field in Flex it goes into. There is the name of the field, and there may be additional information about how it behaves in Flex. You don't have to keep those comments that are there. You can change it to your own, or if you have added a field, you can add your own comment. You can use it however you want, but again, it's just for documentation and it doesn't get exported, it stays in Solid. So that's an overview of the 3 panes of Solid. And again, we'll get into more detail about all of that in later lessons.